On today's episode, I want to talk about connecting and using different types of equipment, either at home or in the club, and how do DJs switch when they're playing on the same setup. This is Share the Knowledge.
For the last 22 years, I've been rocking stages, playing in clubs, and having a lot of fun as a DJ and turntablist, and I've seen and learned a lot. Now it's time for me to share that knowledge by answering the questions that can help you become a better DJ. I'm djTLM, and this is Share the Knowledge.
Hey guys, what's going on with djTLM? This is episode 22 of Share the Knowledge. If you're watching on djTLMtv on YouTube, or if you're tuned into the podcast on SoundCloud or iTunes, welcome back. Now, if you're not familiar with Share the Knowledge, this is my Q&A show. I answer questions, and if you want to ask me a question for a future episode, hit me up on social. The handle is djTLM. Use the comment section on YouTube, or send me an email, djTLMtv@djTLM.com. Ask your question and add the hashtag Share the Knowledge, and I might just answer your question on one of my episodes. Now, this is the first Share the Knowledge episode I'm recording from the new workspace with some of the new equipment. I'm excited, so let's jump right into the first question. I go by DJ Billy Blanco, and I'm currently a bedroom DJ, and for now I'm just practicing the techniques. I plan on stepping out of the bedroom and DJing at clubs, parties, etc. I wanted to know how exactly should I approach transitioning from virtual DJ to sets, and how does it work? I'm asking this because right now I have the Numark Mix Track 3, and I just recently finished my 30-day trial for all of the features. I was planning on buying Serato for my newest laptop to use for DJing, but I wanted to know if I purchase Serato for my personal Serato controller. If I go to a venue that has a different controller, how exactly does that work? Please let me know, because I've been curious about these things for a while now, because I'm close to begin to look for gigs and stuff like that. So that's a great question, and I love to see people thinking ahead. Right now you're practicing in your bedroom, but you're already thinking about club scenarios where certain things might happen. That's a very good thing. Now in your case, the answer is pretty simple. Serato software is not just for your controller that you have at home. The Serato software is activated once it's connected to Serato certified equipment. So for instance, I have Serato on my laptop. Serato will work when I connect it to my S9 mixer. But the Serato software also worked when I connected it to the SZ2 when I did my review. And it also works when I connect it to any of the Rane SL2, SL3 audio interfaces, or to some of the Rane mixers and other certified equipment out there. So if you're not going to be using your own controller, you need to find out what controller they have at the venue, and you can just check out the Serato website, and they have a list of every piece of equipment that will work with Serato, that will activate your Serato software. So you should be good to go if you do that research. Now, if they have a controller that's not supported by Serato, then you can't use your Serato software, and you're going to have to find a different way to do that gig, but at least you'll know in advance. Now, the next question is also about using equipment in the club, but in this case, it's a question about switching between two DJs playing on one set. I was just wondering, I'm playing at a big event in a few weeks, and I'm the warm-up DJ, and I'm just nervous on how will the DJ after me change to his music if we're both using Serato on two different MacBooks with one controller. Every gig I played, it was just me playing, but this is the first time I'm playing with another DJ. Any tips to help in this situation? So that's another great example of someone thinking ahead, thinking about a possible scenario before he gets to his gig. Now in this case, you're both going to be playing on the SR. That only has one USB port, so you can't make the seamless transition by connecting both laptops like you could do with my S9 or an SZ2, some of the Denon controllers. You have the dual audio interfaces. You can connect two laptops. That's perfect. You don't have that, so you're gonna have to check if the venue has any other means to play music. They might have another DJ set there with a mixer and some CDJs. If that's the case, one of you needs to bring some music on a flash drive, have a track ready. That track is gonna play once you finish your set. You play your last track, you end that track with an echo or whatever, or you just mix it in from the CDJ if you can do that. But you start that track from the CDJ. Once that track starts to play, you disconnect your laptop, the other DJ connects his laptop, and he can take over from there. Now, if they don't have a DJ set, but there is like a mixer where your controller is connected to a mixer, you can also bring your phone and a cable to connect your phone to a mixer. Now, it's not the prettiest solution, but it will work. You have a track ready on your phone. Once your set is done, you start one track from your phone. Make it a familiar track so the people will recognize it and dance to it, and then they're good with it. And do the same thing. Track is playing on the phone, you disconnect your laptop, connect the other laptop, and you're good to go. Okay, if none of that is available, you need to have someone, hopefully an MC present, who can grab that microphone and talk to the crowd while the two of you make that transition. And let's be honest, if you have two laptops using Serato, that transition can be done real quick. The other DJ can have the first track ready, loaded into a deck in Serato. All you have to do is take out your last track, disconnect. Now, you're not gonna have audio for a quick second. Connect the other laptop. That normally only takes a couple of seconds for Serato to recognize the connected laptop, connected controller. Bang, you get the players in the screen, and the next DJ can begin. That doesn't have to take longer than 10-20 seconds. Now, if that MC, even if it's just a little bit of crowd participation, like, how's everybody feeling out there tonight? Ladies, let me hear you. Whatever. Before you know it, the 10-20 seconds are done and he can announce the next DJ and the set can continue. So there's ways to work around this. It's great that you're thinking about this, but to be really honest, and this is not my normal way of thinking, but it is the truth, this is not even really your problem. You're playing first. So once your set is done, you're done. So it's actually going to be up to the promoter and the headlining DJ to think of a solution for that DJ to start his set. But it's great that you're thinking about it, because you can also end up in a situation another time where you're not the first DJ playing, but you're second and someone else is already playing on the controller. And in that case, you need to solve that problem. So this is the way you can solve that problem. Now you know. So it's always good to check that out. Also to show the promoter that you're thinking about his or her event, trying to make everything work seamlessly. That will always look good. But if you couldn't think of a solution, at the end of the day, it wouldn't even be your problem to handle. All right, good luck with that gig. I hope everything works out. Now let's stick with the controller for a second, because I have another question that relates to this topic, and this is about connecting extra equipment to use more decks in Serato. I'm trying to do some research on this topic, but it's hard to find anything on what I specifically want to do. I have a DDJ SB2 and I have no reason to go to something like the SR, SX, SZ. I want to potentially get a standalone turntable for scratching and basically use the controller as the mixer. I want to have the turntable set specifically to deck 3 for scratches. I'm right-handed like you. And I continue to use decks 1 and 2 for mixing. I saw some DJs in the Saturday Super Session video who do this, but I'm not sure how it's hooked up. Using either Virtual DJ or Serato, would I just have to get a USB turntable to special vinyl so the program can read what I'm mixing, and that's it? So thanks for your question, Doc Christian. I definitely know what you're talking about, and in my Saturday Super Session videos, you see several DJs use their controller as their center setup, and they connect the extra turntable or even 2 turntables, and they use the turntables for scratching, and in that case the crossfader on their controller, that's used for the mixing, and that works if you have a controller that has the extra input option. So for instance, a couple of years ago I did my SZ review. I recently did the SZ2, but a couple of years ago I made a full review on the SZ2 and on the SZ, and I had that with 2 turntables connected. That became like a really large setup, but you had the SZ and 2 SL1200s. Those SL1200s went straight into the SZ, and that has 4 channels, and that would recognize the control vinyl on those turntables, and I could control 4 decks in Serato with 2 jog wheels and 2 turntables. Now, I don't know if the SB2 has the extra inputs to connect turntables or CDJs. I've used the SB, I have not used the SB2 a lot. I've had it once, but I did not check the in and outputs. So I'm not sure if that's possible. You will need a controller that lets you do that. So it's not about a USB turntable, like I use normal turntables to connect them to the SZ. And that happens with a lot of the different controllers that have that option. You can just connect normal turntables or CD players. You will need to have the control vinyl, the Serato control vinyl, or control CDs, or just the control signal on a flash drive in a CDJ to make that work with the controller. But in that case, Serato will recognize the extra Serato signals and you can control all decks. So that would be great if you can mix on 1 and 2 and have a turntable with a scratch sound, a sample on deck 3. And do your scratching with that. I'm just not sure if you can do that with the SB2. I would need to look into that, but maybe someone can already answer that in the comment section down below, someone with the SB2. So in your case, if you can't connect the extra turntable, that scenario is probably not really going to be possible. What you could do is connect your controller to an extra mixer. So that mixer would have to be in the middle. You can have the turntable, and you can always have normal vinyl on your turntable. There's plenty of like battle breaks, scratch records out there. You can buy a couple scratch records. They have tons of sounds on there. And then you would have your controller for mixing. And anytime you want to do some scratching, you would have to go to the turntable, use the crossfader on that normal mixer, and scratch with that. That is an option, but it does become a little bit more of a hassle to have that extra mixer in the middle. Or you do have to go for another controller that does give you that option. I'm not sure about the SR, but the SX and the SZ definitely have that option. So do a little bit of research to find out which one will work for you, and maybe upgrade if you really want to make that happen. Let's do one more question, and this also relates to equipment. I have a question from Jessica. I'm a beginner, and after watching your video, I have some questions to which gear I should get. I'm more into old school stuff like old school R&B and hip hop, and I'm just now starting to collect vinyl records. I'm pretty sure that I will be buying a turntable so that I can play my records. This sparked my interest in DJing. I want to learn turntablism and scratching, etc., and I'm looking for the right gear to start with. Given that I'm going to buy a turntable, do you think it's better for me to get myself a mixer to go along with the turntable, or do you think I should instead get a DJ controller like the DDJ SB2, which has 2 spinning platters? Which way do you think is better for me to start with, or is there another way to do this? Also, which turntable should you suggest that is under $500? All right, now let's set the record straight first. If you have vinyl and you're gonna buy a turntable, you will also need something that you connect that turntable to. So if you buy a turntable and you have your vinyl, you still can't play music. You can't connect your turntable to speakers. So you're gonna need a mixer. So if you want a turntable set just to play vinyl, you'll need a turntable and a mixer. If you want to learn how to mix with turntables, you're going to need 2 turntables and a mixer. That's the way it has to work. Now, you could have 1 turntable and a mixer if you want to practice your scratching, because you can also, going back to the phone again, connect your phone to your mixer with a cable, play some beats from the phone, and scratch with the turntable. So you could work with 1 turntable to start with, but if you want to practice mixing and turntablism, like juggling and stuff like that, you're gonna need 2 turntables. Now, you mentioned that there's another option. So for instance, the DDJ SB2, because it has 2 spinning platters, that does not have spinning platters. Most controllers have 2 jog wheels. They don't spin. Yes, you can move them around, but they don't spin like a turntable. You only have a couple of options when it comes to controllers with spinning platters. You will be looking at Numark because they have their NS7 line, the NS7 and the 2 and 3. Those have the spinning platters, and you also have the Denon controller. That's the SC3900, if I'm not mistaken. That also has that spinning platter. So that feels like actual vinyl on a turntable. So those are basically your options if you really want to get into scratching and turntablism. And like you said, right now you're buying vinyl, so I guess you want to get turntables. Or you have to step away from vinyl for playing, and you could switch to a controller or use turntables with a DVS and play your music from the laptop. Now, this might already be a little bit confusing, so I don't want to make it too complicated. So stepping back for a second, if you're sticking to your vinyl, you need turntables and a mixer, or at least 1 turntable and a mixer. Now, as far as which turntable to get, there's plenty of turntables out there. Just make sure you get direct drive turntables and not belt-driven turntables. That is the most important tip I can give you. There are plenty of brands out there, or OEM brands, that have starter kits that are not that expensive. So you could look for a starter kit with 2 turntables and a mixer, or find some secondhand turntables and look for brands like Technics, Newmark, Stanton, Vestax, and just get a turntable and just a simple mixer so you can start playing your vinyl. If you want to have a great turntable set, that's going to take a little more money because you want to have a nice scratch mixer to go along with it, and that's going to run you a little bit more than $500. Now, I understand this answer might lead to more questions, so you can ask your questions right here in the comment section or hit me up on email. That's where I'm going to end today's episode. I'm going to end with a question of the day. That question of the day is, name your list of equipment. So what did you start out with? And what did you move on to, and what are you currently using? So for me personally, I started out on turntables, and I started out with some simple Technics, not the SL1200s, but some belt-driven SL, I don't even remember the model and make, but those were some real simple belt-driven turntables with a small dial you had to turn to change the pitch, and a real simple Electo mixer with no crossfader and no EQ. After that, I bumped it up and moved up to the SL1200s, and I don't even remember. I started out with that same mixer. Then I moved on to a Newmark mixer. Can't remember the model. I have to do some research. I'm going to do some research, do a full video on that. But after that, I stepped it up to a Vestax scratch mixer, had a couple of those. Then I got my DJ-M909 by Pioneer, one of my all-time favorite mixers. Kept with the SLs all the time. Did get an NS10 by Newmark, used that for a couple of tours. I did a lot of tours with Vestax turntables, PDX 2000 and 3000. Also acquired some Newmark TTX turntables. So a lot of different turntables, but I definitely also stuck to turntables all the time. But I started to use DVS at a certain point. Started out with Final Scratch and moved on to Serato, and that's where I'm still currently at. Might have missed something. Oh yeah, I also have a QFO, but that's a different story. But that's basically how it went for me, from some real basic stuff. Did stick to turntables, but now I have the better stuff. So let me know what you started out with and what you're currently using. That's going to be interesting to see. If you have any questions, you know where to reach me. djTLMtv at djTLM.com, or hit me up on social. The handle is djTLM, and ask your question, add the hashtag share the knowledge if you want me to answer the question on this show. Hope you enjoyed it. If you're watching the show right now and you want to check it out,